Howdy, my name is Taylor Renault, and I have the topic of feedback and real time strategies for checking for understanding. This is really a pretty simple and straightforward topic, and I had a good time um, doing some research over it because some of it's kind of entertaining. So, I'm going to start out with the entertaining So, we're going to look through some test answers that some kids have written down before. Um, they're quite funny, but I think that they're a good example of what could happen on a test if kids don't fully understand what they're learning and if you don't check for their understanding. So this first kid was supposed to write the greater than or less than sign for the numbers, and clearly they didn't understand what they were doing and they just wrote or for all their answers. What ended in 1896? 1895. Haha, funny. Find X. Here it is. Circle it. Draw a plant cell and identify its most important parts. So, this kid either has a great sense of humor or he really didn't understand the question. I would think if the teacher was checking for their students' understanding while they were teaching, they would know that this kid was probably a little confused. So the flower is clearly in jail. He looks sad. Explain the phrase free press when your mom irons trousers for you. It's a pretty desperate answer. I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't try this one out if I didn't know the answer, but once again, checking for understanding is going to be important. Mike saw 17 blue cars and 25 green cars at the toy store. How many cars did he see? Write a number sentence with a square for the missing number, or I guess a blank. Explain how the number sentence shows the problem. So this kid wrote down 17 plus 25 equals 42, and his explanation is, I got my answer by talking in my brain and agreed of the answer that my brain got. So I don't know if his teacher just didn't explain to him how to explain how the number sentence shows the problem, but once again, checking for understanding could have solved this problem. What are the two types of sex cells? Eggs and sperm. That's good. During what stage do the chromosomes line up in the middle of the cell? It's a secret. This kid clearly has no clue. That was a pretty funny answer, but teacher probably should have checked for some understanding there before giving this test. In which state do the particles show the most movement? California. In which state do the particles show the least movement? New Jersey. Feel sorry for this kid. He clearly did not understand. Expand. A plus B to the nth number. Kid literally expanded. Good guess, Peter, but not quite. Fill in the solutions. The directions are, read each of the problems and come up with a solution for each one. Problem, you fell on the playground and scratched your knee. Solution, get up and deal with it. Whereas that's, I can understand how that would be a good solution, but probably not what the teacher was looking for. So before this test, teacher probably should have done a better job of explaining type of answer that he or she was looking for. So these were a few examples of some pretty funny test answers that probably could have been avoided. But I'm sure after the teachers read these on their test, they probably laughed a little bit, but they probably also got this reaction. Wow. Just wow. So today we will identify the meaning of checking for understanding within the classroom, discuss the importance behind checking for understanding, identify the reasons for incorporating checking for understanding within lessons in the classroom, compare and contrast formative assessments and summative assessments, identify tips for being successful when checking for understanding within the classroom, and lastly, we will discuss strategies for checking for understanding. So, what is checking for understanding and why is it important? Um, Checking for understanding, they shortened it for CFU, is the backbone of effective instruction. Checking for understanding is the teacher continually verifying that students are learning what is being taught while it is being taught. Checking for understanding provides the teacher the opportunity to improve learning based on student responses throughout the teaching and learning process. Using checking for understanding in real time allows students to make crucial instructional decisions as necessary, like reteaching during lesson delivery. So yeah, checking for understanding is just one of those things that we should probably do as teachers so that we know where our kids are at. We don't want to stand up at our board and just start talking about what's going on during a lesson. Um, if we just sit there and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and not check on our students' understanding, then we're not going to know if our students are doing okay. We need to take moments to look back and say, hey, do y'all understand what I'm talking about? Or ask some questions on the main topics that you're wanting your kids to get main points from. You can do short little activities. You can do short little games. Sing a song that has to do with your important concepts, whatever. But when you're teaching, you don't want to just stand up there and talk. You want to interact with your students and make sure that they understand what you're talking about, so that if they don't get it, you can uh, either rephrase what you're saying to help them understand better, or draw more on a certain topic, find different ways to help them get it. Um, we want to incorporate checking for understanding during a lesson because it allows the teacher to make instructional decisions during the lesson. It informs the teacher when to speed up, slow down, or reteach. Checking for understanding helps to pace the lesson. So, if you're teaching something that your kids are picking up really quickly, you don't want to spend too much time on it. And if you're teaching something and your kids just aren't getting it, you want to spend a little more time on that. So, by checking for understanding, you're seeing the things that you need to concentrate on a little more, the things that you can get through a little faster, and it's going to help your kids to get what they need from you. You don't want to just drill something into their heads that they're sitting there saying, okay, I get it. And you definitely want to be able to focus more attention on the things that they're not understanding, rather than just breezing through those parts. We also want to incorporate checking for understanding during lesson, because when teachers look at independent work, homework, quizzes, or state test results to see if students learned, it is too late to modify the instruction. We saw that in the beginning of this PowerPoint with all of those random and funny test questions. Once those teachers gave those tests out and saw their kids' answers, it was a little too late to modify the instruction. And it's probably going to waste a little bit of time, because what they're probably going to have to do, if most of the class did poorly on certain questions, they're going to have to go back and reteach again on another day, when what they could have done is they could have checked for understanding during the initial lesson and retaught at that time. Checking for understanding is the backbone of effective instruction and explicit direct instruction, because you measure and monitor student learning in real time. So that kind of relates back to the last bullet. In real time is the key word right there. You don't want to check for your understanding after the kids have already turned in a test or an assignment that they're getting graded on. It's too late after that. If you can monitor it in real time, then you're going to be able to help your kids out more and help them to succeed more and get better grades. Checking for understanding guarantees high student success, 80 to 100%, because you revise teaching and direct response to student learning. It all goes hand in hand. It's kind of the same thing that I've already been saying. Checking for understanding is going to be your shot to see how your kids are doing, see if they're understanding what they're learning, and if they're not, you can reiterate stuff, you can focus in on more things. You're going to get that direct response instead of a delayed response. Checking for understanding ensures that your students will not be practicing and reinforcing their mistakes. Practice makes permanent, not perfect. I like that a lot because, like in math, you could be teaching your kids to do something a certain way. You have little Johnny sitting in the back thinking that he's getting it and he's gonna learn how to do a certain problem, and it worked for him that time, so he's gonna do the same thing for the next 10 problems. But he could have gotten lucky on that first problem, and it just kind of worked out for him. But he could be doing it wrong, and it's gonna mess up what's going on for the rest of his problems. So I really like that. Practice makes permanent, not perfect. Uh, you want your kids to be able to learn how to do something and do it right. Um, because you could practice and be practicing the wrong thing and make that wrong thing perfect, but you don't want to make that permanent. Things you want to make permanent are the right ways. So now we're going to kind of look at the difference between formative assessments and summative assessments. Checking for understanding is more like giving formative assessments. When you give formative assessments, it's when you're assessing your students throughout what's going on. Your summative assessments are when you're going to assess your students all at the end. So daily quizzes could be your formative assessments. Those could be your checking for understanding, like an exit ticket. But your summative assessment is going to be your overall final exam for that semester. And you don't want to see if your students are getting what you're teaching them during that summative assessment. You want to know that your kids are getting it by looking at those formative assessments and seeing where you're at. So the purpose of a formative assessment is to improve instruction and provide student feedback. The purpose of a summative assessment is to measure student competency or mastery. When a formative assessment is administered, it is ongoing throughout the unit. It's not one just big test. When a summative assessment is administered, it is a end of unit or end of course exam. How the students use the results of a formative assessment is to self-monitor their understanding. They're going to get those little pop quizzes or exit tickets back with a response on it from the teacher, and they're going to be able to see, okay, I'm getting it or I'm not getting it, and what do I need to fix or ask help with. With a summative assessment, the students are going to be able to gauge their progress toward the course or grade level goals and benchmarks. So like think about it with our college classes. We're going to know if we take a big unit test or a module test or whatever, that final grade is going to help us to see how we need to do to improve for the rest of the class. It's not really going to help us understand what we know or don't know. It's going to help us know how to fix whatever we need to fix in order to get the grade we want to get by the end. For formative assessments, the teachers will use those results to check for the understanding and provide additional instruction or a personal intervention for the students. The teachers are going to use summative assessment results for grades and promotion. So it's a big difference. For checking for understanding, our goal is to do those formative assessments instead of the summative assessments. Some tips for success of checking for understanding. Keep your desired outcomes in mind and then let the students know what you want. It's not a big secret to the kids of what you're looking for. You should always let your kids know, the specific goals and things that you want them to know and learn. Create engaging lessons that are instruction focused, collaborative, guided, and allow independent learning opportunities. You want to give your kids a chance to use what they know and kind of figure stuff out and learn for themselves. You don't want to be the only one teaching them. You want them to kind of be able to teach themselves too. But once again, if you're checking for understanding throughout that, then you're going to be able to monitor what your kids are figuring out for themselves. You can plan to check for understanding with a wide range of strategies on a regular basis, and we will talk about some of those strategies in just a second. You can take action based on what you see that your kids know and what they still need to learn. And you can plan additional, more focused instructional time. So if you did have to go back and reteach another day, because let's say that one of your lessons just completely bombed and none of your kids got it, you would know how to fix that lesson and how to reteach it and what the things you need to focus on are for that next day. So here are a few strategies. I picked the 3 that I liked the best from this one PDF file, and then I have the link and website to that PDF file if y'all want to go back and look at more strategies. So the 3-2-1 or fist to 5 or thumbs up, thumbs down strategy, students communicate their level of understanding to the teacher using their fingers. So say you just got done teaching a concept and you want to know if someone gets it or doesn't get it, you can say, all right, thumbs up if you get it, thumbs down if you don't. Or give me 1 finger if you don't understand something very well, or 3 fingers if you're like, yeah, I understand it. You can use your entrance or exit tickets. Each student will be given a ticket to complete before leaving the room, answering what is the most important thing I learned today, what questions do I still have. These tickets can be given to the teacher when exiting the room or upon entering the next day. The teacher uses this information to guide the instruction. I really love exit tickets. Pop it or bubble wrap. Students write what they want to know about a topic on a dot sticker. They can place each sticker on the bubble wrap, and when a topic is covered, the student can pop the bubble. So if they have particular questions before entering a topic and they want to know certain things, they can write those little questions on it, stick it on the bubble, and when they pop it, you know that you have covered something that a kid was curious about. I thought that one was fun, because who doesn't like to pop bubble wrap? So some places that you can find more of these strategies, those 3 that I just talked about came from anylearn.mylearning.org. There's a whole list of things that you can do on edutopia.com and the teacher toolkit. If you'll Google the teacher toolkit and checking for understanding strategies, it's got a whole lot of them. That would be a lot of fun for your kids. So today we identified the meaning of checking for understanding within the classroom. We discussed the importance behind checking for understanding. We identified the reasons for incorporating checking for understanding within lessons in the classroom. We compared and contrasted formative assessments and summative assessments. We identified tips for being successful when checking for understanding within the classroom. We discussed strategies for checking for understanding. So by practicing checking for understanding within the classroom, teachers, their faces can go from seriously, OMG, what was that? Why did you write this dumb answer on your test? I can't believe you just said that, to hallelujah, finally we have gotten this information, and we can achieve this outcome by doing our formative assessments, checking for understanding as we're teaching, rather than just giving a big summative assessment at the end and just seeing kind of how our kids do. And here's a list of my references. I hope you all enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun talking about it. So hopefully I gave you some fun tips and strategies to incorporate checking for understanding within your classroom.